Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brothers and sisters.
Greetings. You want to try that? We got a minute left on the intro. You want to try that again?
No, that was fun as it was.
Let's log out and log back in.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
No.
Greetings.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
All right, we're back.
Welcome to Brew Strong.
I'm keeping that in there.
Ah, yes. Another fine day of drinking and doing shows. It's all very professional.
Yes, we are, but we love what we do.
We love who we do. Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right. How's it going, Palmer?
Oh, it's going very well. Going very well indeed. Despite the wind and, you
eating a lot of beans, or what kind of wind are you talking about?
I'm talking about the 50 to 90 mile an hour gales.
That's really explosive.
Yes.
Did your underwear survive those 50 to 90 mile an hour gales?
Why, yes, they did.
Look like an old pirate flag.
Yeah, that's the kind of quality programming you come to expect from the Brewing Network. Speaking of quality,
especially from Brew Strong.
Speaking of quality, huh?
Hey, Blickman Engineering.
It's pretty good. It's not your usual left field, but it's
right. I just wait for a word that fits, and then I go for it. Speaking of quality, our great sponsor, Blickman Engineering, they're producing quality equipment, quality, innovative products to make your brewing day better.
Yeah, innovate your brew day.
Innovate your brew day. It's somewhere I heard that. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic marketing.
Yeah, I recognize that.
No. They do make great, innovative products that actually will make your brew day easier, better, faster, stronger. It's like the John Blickman is like the $6 million man of the brewing equipment scene.
Yeah, he makes that noise
every time he runs in like slow motion.
Yeah,
have you seen him? Yeah. It's really cool. He looks somewhat like what's his name?
Steve Austin.
Steve Austin. Yes, the $6 million man.
Did you ever see the
As we digress. Yeah.
No, the Duck Dodgers show where he had Steve Austin and Jamie Summers on.
In the 24th and a half century?
Yes.
Yeah, Duck Dodgers.
Oh, yeah, well, that was a beautiful episode.
Yeah, that's totally pertinent to what we're talking about. Thank you very much for that sidetrack.
They even have Bigfoot on there, or the guy from maintenance. I mean, it was a hoot.
So if you enjoy this show...
You hear that, Jamil? Grandma over here calls it a hoot.
Right.
Yeah. Get Grandma his ass
enjoy
can.
this show...
Sorry, John.
I don't know why you'd enjoy the show, but if you do, contact Blickman Engineering and tell them thank you for sponsoring John's random segues onto a total bypass of where the show's going.
Grandma's getting up there.
Yeah, he's getting a little old. What do you expect? All right. So today we're going to do a live Q&A show. So if you're listening live to the show, what that means is you can go into the chat room on the Brewing Network site, thebrewingnetwork.com. There's a button there, Chat Now. You click on that, it takes you in. You don't need any particular username or password at all. Just type in whatever name you want to appear on the screen. join the chat, and you can type, and there's other people listening to the show. JP will see your question. If you have a question that is in English and makes halfway sense, he will ask us those questions.
We have a lot.
You can also email in your questions to the brewstrong at thebrewingnetwork.com, and we'll get all those. You get an automated response, but we save every single one of those, and we go through those every time we're doing one of these Q&A shows, and we print out a bunch, and we'll read those as well. So eventually, within the next 10 years, we will get to your question. I can promise you. Either that or I'll be dead, so one or the other. All right, so what's our first question of the day? Oh, he's going to the email. He's
going to the email. Right from email. This is from Jim in Bloomington.
Jim in Bloomington
Minnesota.
writes from email.
Jim is confused about the pitching rate for dry yeast. According to the Mr. Malty pitching calculator.
Oh, that fucking thing.
But you can access it at MrMalty.com.
For free.
For free. For a 5-gallon batch of 1050 ale, he says, I need 175 billion cells.
Yes.
According to Mr. Malty.
Yes.
It also states that I get the needed cell count from 10 grams of properly rehydrated dry yeast. But according to the spec sheet for Safeale USO5, there are 6 to the 10 to the 9th power.
That's 6 billion.
Thank you. Living cells per gram of dry yeast.
Which is interesting because I've measured the amount of cells per gram of the Safeale USO5, and I came up with 20 billion. Now, that's not necessarily living cells. Now, here's the interesting thing.
Well, here, just 2 more sentences.
Okay.
If my math is correct, that's 6 billion living cells per gram, or 66 billion living cells per 11-gram package. Going by the Safeale spec sheet, I would need almost 3 packages of dry yeast to get 175 bill.
Right.
What am I missing?
All right, so and this question comes up a lot. It's like, well, manufacturer says it's 6 or 5 or 8 or 10, and you say 20, and here's all the factors that come into effect. The weight of the yeast, the weight of the non-yeast material that they include in the dry yeast to keep the cells from sticking together.
Interesting.
And the viability upon rehydration,
right,
or on sprinkling on top of your wort.
Does anybody still do that?
Well, they shouldn't. If you go to that same manufacturer site and you look at the homebrewer recommendation or the pro recommendation, the homebrewer recommendation says just sprinkle it on top of your wort. Right, the pro recommendation says rehydrate properly at whatever temperature and pitch that. When you take dry yeast, and sprinkle it on your wort, about half of it dies. So half of that yeast you throw in there is dead. You could avoid that by properly rehydrating. You can get 90-95% rehydration success. So right there, you're just about doubling the amount of yeast you need. So 6 becomes 12. Now, it's also, how long the thing's been sitting. If it's sitting warm versus refrigerated, viability has an effect. Again, any sort of material that might be added to help the cells stay,
calcium stearate or something like that.
Right. So all that stuff has another effect. I think it's possible to get 20 billion cells out of that. Now, they may not all be viable, but that's why we have viability calculations, or why you do viability calculations yourself. The important thing is you should be rehydrating it properly, proper temp, and all that stuff. I would be fine with, instead of using 20 billion, you use 15 billion or even 10 billion. You can double the amount of yeast you pitch and not hurt your beer.
Right.
But if you cut the amount of yeast you do in half from what it should be, then you're really screwed. Well, not really screwed, but it's not going to turn out as good. There's much more leeway on the upper side. So maybe the yeast calculator should use like 10 billion and just call it good. But you don't just need to use quite as much yeast. And the point is, don't sprinkle it on there, because you're going to put a bunch of dead yeast in there, and that's why you're going to get your autolyzed flavors, and that's why everybody talks about, you need to rack it off the yeast, because after a week it's all going to give these horrible flavors. Yeah, because you're throwing half dead yeast in there.
Right.
It's like old school. Come to the new age.
A follow-up question from Jeepin in the chat asks,
Ooh.
how do you properly rehydrate dry yeast?
It depends on the yeast manufacturer, but generally it's 250 mils of water or whatever it might be for X amount of grams of yeast, and proper temperature. You can use like GoFirm or one of these yeast rehydrating agents to help it, but it's generally tap water. You don't want to use distilled. You don't want to use some sugary wort. You can use one of those rehydration agents that they use because winemakers do a lot of dry yeast, and you can get they have agents that help with the rehydration. You get those from your
temperature should be
shop. Depends on the yeast, and the manufacturer should list a temperature for you. Some of them are lower than traditional. I think I'm not sure, but I've seen some like down in the 70, 80s.
Oh, really?
But most of them tend to be from 90 to 105 or 110.
Okay.
It just depends on the yeast strain, and the manufacturer should have done tests and compared side by side every 5 degrees and go, well, this one gives us the most, and that's the temperature you should use.
Okay. Yeah.
So it should work just fine. A lot of this is in the yeast book by
Dog Meat.
Homeboy and Dog Meat. Yes.
Homeboy and Dog Meat.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to the email. I'm going to reach in the little email bag.
Reaching into the email bag.
This is from Charlie from Pittsburgh with an H. He made a point to capitalize the H. So he's not from Pittsburgh, California. Hey, guys. I'm a beginning brewer who has learned a lot from your books and podcasts. I'm starting to brew a variety of styles to find the ones that I like. I want to follow your recommendation on how to repitch yeast. Can you recommend a series of beers that I can brew one after the other and repitch the yeast from those batches? Make each one in a series different enough to be interesting. Also, for styles like a Maibach or a barley wine that pretty much require a 5-gallon starter, what would you brew so the starter is worth drinking? Thanks.
Well, see, here's the interesting thing is, all this information's out there. You have to do this work yourself. I'm not going to give you a list. I get this question all the time. I'm not going to give you a list of what to brew for the next 2 years. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I find that, I don't like this question. It's like, all right, I like that you asked it, but yeah, you need to learn what yeast strains are used and what styles. You need to learn what styles they are. You need to you can do this. I know you can. There's, we got the original Jamel show. We go through every style and talk about every little last aspect of what yeast you can use. But you should be able to find all your English beers that use all English yeasts, and you should be able to sort those yourself from, based on IBUs and color and gravity and stuff like that. And, you can do those in that order. You can do the same thing on a lager yeast. You can do the same thing on a clean ale yeast like, 001. And you should be able to do those. And,
but it's basically light to dark, right? I mean,
not necessarily. I mean,
low gravity to high gravity.
Right, yeah. And I'm not sure it's quite so important. I would...
Yeah, I mean, Stone is an example of that.
Right. If you... as long as you're doing it quick, right after fermentation's done, if you move into the next beer, I wouldn't be quite as freaked out about, all that. It's certainly better if you go lower gravity, higher gravity, lower IBU to higher IBU, lower color to higher color. But... you should be able to sort those out and figure that out on your own. And I think it's a good challenge. And there's a lot of leeway and flexibility in it. So you don't want somebody prescribing for you, all the beers that you should do. I think you should, give it a shot. And, you'll learn something as well. So,
yep, I agree.
I hate to be a spoil sport. A bastard about it.
Let's do one quick one. Maybe we'll take a break.
Okay.
What do you think?
If you say so, Dad. There's one quick one.
Look, you respect me. I may not be your father, but your mother and I love each other.
You hit me like so.
Yeah, your mother and I love each other very deeply. Right. This is from your best buddy, Pete, in Sydney. I called him Pete, even though I don't think he likes it. Oh. He wants to know, should he put Whirlfloc in the boil for a Belgian wit?
You certainly can.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Good answer.
Whirlfloc affects protein as opposed to starch haze.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
a wit, you get some starch haze, but a lot of it's yeast haze.
Right.
You could, but why?
You don't have to.
No.
You can.
Right.
Flavor effect shouldn't really be an issue.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
There you go. We're done. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we will do more of your questions from the chat and from the email. Back after this.
When you hear Blickman Engineering, think innovation, passion, quality, and customer service. Blickman gear is designed by brewers to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmaster's database if you want. And the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then, bam, click Buy Recipe, and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmaster's Warehouse is run the way a home brewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmaster's Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BNARMY in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers.
A heretic is anyone who does not conform to an established attitude, doctrine, or principle.
If you love craft beer, you're already a heretic.
The very first thing we did when we started looking at the beers that we would brew, we got rid of all those recipes. We started from scratch. We've been pilot brewing the most creative things that we could think of and the most interesting things. We've completely gone away from style.
Heretic Brewing Company is opening this spring in Pittsburgh, California, and you can be a part of it. Visit hereticbrewing.com and facebook.com/hereticbrew. Get the latest updates on the brewery and upcoming beers. Show everyone how you celebrate great beer as a heretic.
It's a fairly powerful word. Being a heretic, that means you're not settling for ordinary beer. You are going with flavorful, creative, bold, interesting beers. A heretic is looking for the best beers out there.
Be a heretic. Don't drink ordinary beer. Since the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge. Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're doing a live Q&A show. Me and my buddy
beer.
John Palmer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Did you know?
Oh, no.
Did you know? Let's see. Any of these any good? Let's see here.
Well, you blow the whole premise now. Now everyone's going to know.
Yeah, what you don't know about my friend John Palmer?
That he writes these himself? Or
No. No, he has writers. No, he once lost his sombrero in a tornado. Once lost his sombrero in a tornado.
Aye.
That's exactly what he said.
Mm-hmm.
It was. He once made a tornado change directions just by looking at it, but that sounds very...
What, impossible?
Dos Equis.
Well, you've insulted your writer.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do,
Yeah.
I prefer Heretic.
drink it with a sombrero.
Don't always drink beer, so don't listen to a thing I say about it.
Right.
Because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
All right. What do we got?
We got, this is from Justin.
Well,
But not our job.
Oh.
Dear Jamil and John, first of all, thank you for sharing your blah, 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 blah. I've listened to you guys.
Sounds like Justin.
Yada, yada, yada.
That sounds like Justin.
I've been bottling from the keg for years, going along with the cap on foam method to prevent oxidation. No matter how much I try to cap on foam, I always feel like I'm doing it wrong. So instead of going down the same path, I decided that since I have control over the fill levels in my bottles, why don't I cap on beer? Will this pose any negative effects on my beer? To me, it seems the less headspace, the less chance of oxidation, so why not just get rid of the headspace entirely if you have the means to? I've started to do this method so the beers I'm trying this on aren't old enough yet to tell whether there's a difference. Another reason to me that this seems okay is the thought that cans are a better package, and one of the benefits being of a can is that there's less headspace in there. Just interested on your thoughts. Thanks for all you do, Justin. I don't know why I had to mock Justin, but it's a good question.
Well, right. I think one of the things on...
Do you suppose headspace is all aesthetic?
I do think so. I think the only other thing is, in the day when caps weren't lined, you don't want your beer touching the cap and making it rust.
True.
So, they're lined caps now. I'm not sure how much that's going to help. A couple of interesting things is...
They do say that
the liners leak oxygen, so I don't think it's really going to change the amount of oxidation. I think that if you have beer full to the top and it's running over the top lip of the bottle, and then you cap, maybe you have a pathway there for bacteriological. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I believe that there was one...
I believe I can fly.
Yeah, but I believe there's one, study done, or, some people did an experiment where they said that beer with, 3/4 inch of headspace carbonated faster than beer with 1/4 inch of headspace.
Right, that's for, bottle condition, but I'm assuming that they're talking about counterpressure filling or, filling carbonated beer.
Right. So, in the case of, if you're doing that, if you're bottling already carbonated beer,
right?
Yeah, I'd probably fill it right up.
I don't think it helps you any. I don't think you're not gaining anything. It's not coming through the glass.
Yeah, that's right. And if you are capping on foam, then that headspace is cleared anyway.
I think more important, you get yourself a Blickman beer gun.
There you go.
And then you can flush the bottle with CO2, and then you can fill in a nice quiescent manner.
Quiescent, that's been...
And then, the fill levels are proper, and that's how I do it, and it's not an issue.
You don't want foam shooting at the top.
I don't see an advantage to filling all the way with beer.
Right.
Because the headspace is filled with carbonation, or, especially if you're capping on foam.
Yeah.
Not an issue. I think if commercially, if if it was better to fill bottles all the way, they would.
Right. But
I know I would. But we're capping on foam. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think part of it may be aesthetic. In terms of a commercial beer, see that level and
right. Yeah. So I think the bigger question is if did he say he was filling from like a piece of hose or something like
that? He didn't really say. He just filling from keg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you're filling from like a hose or something like that, then that's fucked up. That's use a decent piece of equipment. You can use regular counter pressure fillers. Those work fine. Liquid beer gun's easier to use,
especially if you're doing a bunch.
And it's it does every bit as good a job. So I would just go with that. I don't think you're really going to do any better than that. But commercially, when bottles are filled, there's long tube fillers, short tube fillers. And long tube, the tube goes all the way to the bottom of the bottle, and they flush it out with CO2 from the bottom, and so it's devoid of air. The short tube, what they do is the short tubes can run faster, is why they have short tube, because it can go in the bottle quicker. And then what they do is they vacuum out the air and fill it with CO2, and vacuum out the air and fill it with CO2. But you never get quite all the oxygen out, so that's one of the reasons long tube is better, but long tube's slower. So Blickman is like a long tube filler. You pass it down to the bottom of the bottle. You inject CO2 from the bottom of the bottle up, and it flushes all the air out. And so, it's just every bit as fast as any other kind of pressure filler you're going to use. So, short tube, long tube in a can filler doesn't make a difference. But it does flush all the CO2 out, and then you're filling. There should be very low oxygen levels in a Blickman beer gun filled bottle.
That's right.
So just like a long tube filler on a commercial scale, and that's what we use. And I think we have low oxygen levels. So
let's go back to the chat. Beer Biggin.
Biggins.
Beer Biggin likes big hot bombs. Is what he says.
Oh, should be Biggins.
Show me your bombs. I use Pro Mash and hit my numbers all the way, pre-boil, evaporation, etc. But when I move my chilled wort to the fermenter, my gravity is usually high, approximately by 10 points. Is the refractometer sensitive to big hops?
No.
Short answer. Love it. Love a short answer. It makes me happy, but then frustrated because I don't have a question to come back up with it. This is also from the chat, Iconis. Question. I've been doing some fermenting under pressure in pinlock kegs, but I want to do it much more like a commercial brewery. I've heard in previous shows that some breweries cap their fermenters after the growth phase and whatnot is done. But my question is, generally, what is the hydrostatic pressure before they cap their fermenters? I'm using a spunding valve and want to adjust my pressure accordingly. I've just been half-assing it.
Yeah, it's not right after growth. It's later in fermentation than that. Usually it's after the main fermentation
after
is
peak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the commercial breweries that do cap the fermentation to capture CO2 and naturally carbonate.
Well, they're not measuring hydrostatic. They're measuring
gravity and
pressure.
Yeah. But
yeah,
I mean,
usually they'll check gravity as their key.
I don't think they're doing it out of any beer purity. I think they're doing it, maybe as economics.
Right. Faster turn of the beer. So, and
therefore, I don't see any reason for a home brewer to try to replicate it.
I agree. It's one thing we're running into is like, well, you have a fermenter, and you need to fill that fermenter to the frickin' maximum it'll hold that you can safely ferment.
Yeah.
And you need to, the moment that beer is done, to the level of quality that is important, you drain that thing and you fill it back again. And that's our limiting factor. And if you're not going to do that, then if that is important to you, then you shouldn't be following commercial stuff. That's one of the things that always pissed me off and still pisses me off is home brewers going like, well, the commercial brewer does this, so that's why I should do it. It's like, no.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that.
That's correct.
It's like fermentation temperatures. It's like so many things. It's like the reason that the commercial brewer is doing it is because the scale of the equipment dictates it, or
the economy
the economy of it dictates it. You just can't. I can't make the homebrew evil twin. I have to make the commercial equivalent and do things different.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's just physically impossible.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm talking to people about that have never considered brewing before, and I'm telling them, you can brew any beer you can buy. In fact, you can brew better beer than you can buy, because we're not, as a home brewer, you're not held to the same restrictions and constrictions that a professional brewer is. And this is a great example.
If you use fresh liquid yeast, and you pitch appropriate rates, and you can control your fermentation temperature,
right,
and you have nice sanitary conditions, you can make world-class beer, the best beer in the world. And like you're saying, better than commercial brewer can. But you need all those other little things. Homebrewer just slapping shit in the bucket and letting it go at whatever temperature. It's like, well, sorry.
Yeah, and you need to be able to understand, where the goals and restrictions of these processes are. So, you're not trying to cripple yourself by emulating a commercial brewer.
Well, probably the best way is to listen to
Brew Strong. Yeah,
just saying.
Speaking of brewing strong, what you don't know about my friend John Palmer is he's an expert on water. Anyway, and Brian writes into Palmy. He says, I have a question regarding my town's water supply. I've listened to all the shows on water adjustments, and I've used John's book as my Bible when, quote, making water from distilled. I brewed a dozen batches with distilled, and I'm getting tired of paying for it. The reason I started with distilled, blah, blah. Anyway, his town pulls from like 3 different wells or something like that, right? So he's always been hesitant to send a sample out to the lab, blah, blah, blah. Question, have you guys seen or heard of this kind of thing before? I'm afraid that the engineer in me is taking all of this way too seriously, and if I just send one sample to a lab, the results will be close enough. Perhaps I should send 3 or 4 samples collected at different times of the year. Expensive.
Well,
so how should Brian plan to make his water as consistent
but it's
as
like
possible?
instead of $16, it's like $45 or $50.
Yeah. I think I would. I mean, where'd you say he was from, JP?
Damn you and your follow-up questions. Norfolk,
Virginia,
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
That's what he says.
So, I mean, there you do have 4 seasons. It may be, well, as opposed to Southern California,
you
we
get
got
12 months as well.
You have windy and hot.
Yeah, but I mean, so it may, if he's trying to be, serious about gauging his water and brewing to his water each time of the year, he maybe should take 4 samples quarterly, one for each season.
Southern California too, because all your water from Southern California comes from Northern California,
right?
Where we do have seasons.
That's
we have rain
stolen from us.
It's all stolen from Northern California.
But I mean, it's mainly snowmelt, so it's pretty low.
Well, wouldn't you just? Maybe just invest in an RO
all your wells
filter.
are dry down there, aren't they? Yeah.
Well, it's a desert. Why not just invest in an RO filter and just make your own distilled water?
Right. You could. But the question he's asking is, how much effort should he put into understanding his source water?
Well, yeah.
And he can, if he's saying that his community pulls from 3 sources. Well, he could probably call them up and just have them tell him, each time he, the day before he brews or whatever, what the water profile is, because they'll know. It's the sort of thing that a municipal supplier checks every week, and
as soon, especially of him calling every week and going,
they don't care. Like, they're bored.
I don't know. I think I called once and asked them, and they're just like, "What? No, maybe we can send you something."
Yeah.
They weren't going to divulge any information about water to me. Is it made with hydrogen and oxygen? Can't tell you.
I don't know. I've had much better luck calling up, our suppliers. But
that's you. They recognize the voice. Is that John Palmer? Oh yeah. Better
the Velvet Fog.
What's going on?
But I seriously, I would have him call and find out, or learn, when they do switch sources. and what to expect.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Well, I think, I'm kind of along the same lines. It's like, I think you should put the effort into figuring out what your water is, but I wouldn't freak out about small differences. And I think the municipalities try and keep it pretty even across the year, right?
Well,
within a certain range.
The focus of a municipal water supply is primary standards, which are contaminants, which are pesticides, toxic metals.
Right, but they also worry about their pipes and buildup of minerals and things like that, and so they try and keep it all within a certain range, or too high in acid or things like that.
Right.
And it tends not to wildly fluctuate from one extreme to the other. I mean, it'll swing a bit, but your beers in the summer, it's like summer winter. I think it's not like you need it 12 times a year if you're not commercially brewing. I think you can get away with 2 or 3 samples and send them off to Ward Labs, and that'll tell you. Yeah,
I think that's in general that's a good recommendation. What I've learned in working on the water book has been that everybody that supplies water, they filter it, they take out organic odors,
right?
Then
as much crap out of it as they can. They make it clear.
They make
odor-free.
They adjust the pH to usually 7 to 8.5 range.
And again, it's protecting their equipment more than it is really any sort of worry about what's going to happen at your end.
And if they do switch sources during the year, it's the sources are usually fairly similar
because they all come generally from the same area. If you're in an area where there's a lot of mountains with a lot of snow melt, you're in a valley near some mountains, you get a lot of snow melt, a lot of river water. Where I live, they pull off the river and then they pull from the wells, and it depends on what time of the year. And that's about as big a swing as you're going to get, I think.
Yeah. And brewing being the forgiving process it is, if you just plan on a amber to dark amber or copper colored beer style, your water will brew that just fine. Really, no matter what its composition is. It's when you're trying to brew a very light beer or a very dark beer that you want to take an extra step and maybe define or understand the water a little bit more if you're really trying to nail that style. When you brew with any water, every professional brewer that I've talked to so far, or at least every professional brewer should carbon filter their water to get the chlorine and the chloramine out. And and if
not
you do,
all of them do.
Right, not all of them do. But if you're serious about nailing a beer style and brewing a superior beer, you can do that, and you will be 90% of the way there. Worrying about the mineral composition is that extra 10% where you're trying to really tailor the beer.
When you're trying to nail something,
but
carbon filter.
Carbon filtration is most of the way to achieving a great beer.
Godliness.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I think I've said that. This is from Afrobite, also in the chat. He says, I get high efficiency on my low gravity beers. Should I no sparge to lower my efficiency, or go with a coarser crush, or what? He'd like to get more consistent efficiency across his beers. So I guess his lower gravity beers, he's just that good of a brewer. He's getting too much. He's having a problem dialing in his efficiency with something that
and on
small of a grain
higher
bill.
Gravity is getting less efficiency. See, and that sounds to me more like channeling or other issues with the mash, with runoff speed.
Right. Yeah. If you're getting, well, he say it again. He's getting higher gravity than he has expected.
Yeah. He has a higher efficiency in his system when he's dealing with low gravity beers. So not to say necessarily that's linear.
Again,
so his high gravity beers are going to be lower. I'm just saying.
Well,
I don't know that.
Must be by reason of logic. Then that statement says that higher gravity is lower efficiency, and
maybe he's hitting his efficiency when it's higher gravity, but when he drops
he's
it
getting
down,
higher.
When he drops it down, then
if it's higher, then it's lower than the other one. All right, so and then what that means, assuming he's keeping the same mash tun for all of these, is when he gets a deeper grain bed, his efficiency's dropping. If his efficiency's dropping with a deeper grain bed, generally that means he's getting channeling, or he's running off too fast, or he's using a different ratio of water or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
So you're using more grain, slow down a little bit.
Okay, but when you're using less, you can pull off, or
well, he may be putting enough water in there that's pretty much like batch sparging or something.
So maybe his solution is to try to dial in his higher efficiency, or his higher. What am I trying to say? His stronger beer efficiency is when he gets his higher gravity beers that he's getting lower efficiency on. Dial that in and then make that your efficiency.
I think just account for it. If he's getting 5 more points, out of a low gravity beer, then next time he brews it, then change his efficiency setting and
throw a little more grain in. But if and that's a simple. If he wants to really figure out what's going on, I imagine it is either like his lower gravity beers, they tend to be like a different color and a different pH or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just something he hasn't noticed consistency wise, or he's running off too fast for that depth of grain bed, and he needs to slow it down or add more water or something like that, and that's the issue. So there's some sort of little issue that way that could make it even out, and he could get the same efficiency off of both. But like John's saying, you can just throw some more grain in, or lower the amount of grain on the small one, or whatever it takes to make the numbers work. That's fine, as long as it's consistent. That's all what's important. I think that's what you're saying, right, John?
Right.
So consistency is an important thing, but if you really want to know what's going on and adjust it, it's one of those little things.
Because your efficiency is going to change, it's going to lower as your gravity increases, right? It's just a cause and effect, right? Or is it not?
Yeah, well, he doesn't say. So,
well, I mean, just in general.
Right. Not necessarily. If you get to a certain, size beer, then there's a limit. Mm-hmm. But you sparge that remaining sugars out. But there's a certain limit to, based on your water to grist ratio, how high a gravity wort you can extract.
Right. For the the OG of the beers that I do, and for the styles of beer that I do, I tend to choose an efficiency of about 85% for my system, and I hit my numbers. It doesn't matter the style. I know that the amount of time that I take to sparge, the way that I sparge, so my system is 85%. And
fuck, mine's 68.
Yeah. And it's really a lot of it. I mean, you can have two brewers on the same system, but the way that they use it, and that brewer A will be consistent, brewer B can be consistent. They're going to have different efficiencies, and as long as
runoff speed plays a big role,
and all the other factors that feed into overall efficiency. So don't get hung up on the fact that you're getting one style or group of beers to come in a little higher efficiency than the other. Just now that you understand that you are getting that, then adjust your recipe quantities accordingly. Mm-hmm. Or maybe look into channeling issues or something like that if you think that.
If you want to figure it out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not a big deal. Alrighty, let's take a short break, and when we come back, more of your questions after this.
What does craft beer mean to you? Is it a delicious way to support your town's local brewer? Or perhaps it's the perfect beverage to pair with those delicious devils on horseback? Regardless of whether you're thinking of pints or pairings, pilsners or porters, craftbeer.com is the site where craft beer lovers come together to learn and share. Craftbeer.com is brought to you by the Brewers Association and celebrates the best of American craft beer and its brewers. Craftbeer.com is the best place to find craft beer events, recipes, great feature stories, the most up-to-date brewery listings, and resources for your next beer tasting or dinner, like style guidelines, pairing mats, and charts. Get the inside scoop on new beer releases and special events from today's craft beer insiders, and chime in to share your own knowledge, perfect pairings, road trips, recipes, and more. Craftbeer.com, celebrating the best of American beer.
BN Army, HopTech has a great discount waiting for you. Do you often find it difficult to find specific specialty ingredients for your home brew recipes? Well, listen to this. HopTech stocks 59 different grains to choose from, 39 varieties of pellet hops, and 8 kinds of whole leaf hops. And HopTech not only carries Y yeast and White Labs yeast for you, but also Fermentus, 04, 5, 6, 23, 33, and T58 Belgian yeast, plus Cooper's, Nottingham, and Windsor yeasts. Got your recipe ready to go? Pick up some great brew gear like new long and short sleeved shirts, games, and more. HopTech's new website is being updated every day with new items. If you don't see it, call the shop. They're open 6 days a week. BN Army and AHA members get a 10% discount, and active military personnel get 15% off. Visit HopTech.com today for great selection, great service, and a great discount. HopTech.com.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in the can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian 2-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to WilliamsBrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's WilliamsBrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
Hi, this is John from Grain and Grape in Melbourne, Australia. This has been a big year for us. We've just celebrated our 21st birthday and we've been voted best home brew shop in Australia. We reckon that makes us pretty much the best brew shop in the Southern Hemisphere. Now we've got the ultimate fix for all you space poor, time poor and lapsed brewers. The all-in-one Brewmeister is now at Grain and Grape and it's a beauty. There are 20, 50 and 200 litre systems. It lets you complete a temperature-controlled mash, boil and cool, all within the same stainless steel mains-powered unit. So if you live in an apartment, you don't have the time to complete a traditional brew day, or are just plain lazy, you can be brewing beautiful all-grain beer more quickly than ever. We're also now making our own range of small-batch fresh work kits on the 200 litre system right here in the warehouse. Just one last thing. Mention the Brewing Network next time you're ordering online or over the phone to receive freight free on your next order of up to 15 kilos. Check out grainandgrape.com.au for conditions.
Back to your hosts, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. Putting the testicles in technical. This is Brew Strong.
Woohoo! We're back.
We are back. You want to jump right into it?
Yeah, let's jump.
Jump right in.
Jump! Beep, 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 beep. This one's from Secret Lab in the chat. Secret Lab would love to take one of the courses, homebrewing courses for his BGCP, but was wondering if there is a cheaper or free resource for, as he says, us Po folk to refine our palates, learn about beer flavors and flaws.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you,
Blue Ribbon.
It's called thebrewingnetwork.com. Check out the Jamel Show, the earlier shows that we did.
There you go.
The Jamel Show. That's we did every BJCP style, and we did a show on every single one of them. We talked about the beers, what makes the style, how to brew it, some tasting notes, things like that, examples. I've heard a lot of people say that it really helped them a lot in preparing for the exam, so I would suggest that. And then if you go to the BJCP site, they have all the sample questions that cover all the various stuff on the website. You can get those questions, write yourself examples of those. And what else would you use? Then they also list books that there's a number of books, great books like Brewing Classic Styles. That's recommended by the BJCP for their styles, and Brewing New Lager Beer and How to Brew, and a couple other books that they pull information from for the exam. So if you read all those books, you listen to all those shows, you drink all those beers, you read through the style guide multiple times, try and memorize that stuff, you should be good to go.
Yeah, and the one thing that helped me in studying for the BJCP exam was making flashcards of the style and the parameters, the key parameters.
Right.
And just, flipping through flashcards, that was a good way to memorize them.
Yep.
There you go. Old school. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's, relatively cheap.
This one is from our friend Bungchuz. Bungchuz says, I usually fly sparge using a rotating sparge arm, but during my last brew day, the sparge arm broke. Because I'm poor, there's a theme going on here. Because I'm poor, I'm trying to just use that same equipment while brewing. Can I just sparge with a tube from my hot liquor tank to the top of my grain bed if I keep an inch or two above the grain bed, or will I lose a lot of efficiency due to channeling? So, does your sparge arm need to rotate, or does it not?
Sparge arms aren't necessary.
Yeah. Probably makes zero difference.
Straight from the mouth of babes, you know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
This is from... let's do someone else who hasn't asked a question yet. Dead Lemming.
Oh, yes.
In the chat. He says he's repitched WLP 001, SF Lager, and Pac-Man yeasts for 5 or so batches each now. After about the third repitch, he's noticed that all of a sudden the beers start giving him severe cases of colon blow flatulence. Batches are lagered for a couple weeks and looked clear. Has the yeast become less flocculent, or, as he puts it, is my bowel just full of yeast now? I find now that I need to filter and fine in addition to just lagering to avert the colon.
Well, if he sees that the beers are cloudy, then what happened? And yeast flocculation patterns change very rapidly within a generation or two, or a repitch or two. Mm-hmm. You can change flocculation patterns, and this happens on lager repitching all the time, to where it becomes very dusty right away. And you'll never get the yeast to settle out. Now, if he sees cloudy yeast in there, then that's obviously the thing. He needs to change his manner of repitching and selecting. And what usually happens is people, especially back when people believed in this thing about secondary and all that crap, they would, the initial yeast fell, and they would rack the beer off of that, and they'd throw that yeast away. And then what they would collect is the last yeast, the very latest to flocculate yeast would fall out, and that's what they'd repitch, and they'd keep doing that, and then you get yeast that won't flocculate at all.
Right.
So as long as he's not doing that, then it's something else that he's doing. But it's how you select and repitch your yeast and how you're treating your yeast will change flocculation. If the beer's not clouding up and you don't see the cloudiness of the yeast in suspension, then it's all in your imagination. It's related to something else, All
right, awesome. This one is, again, from the chat with a new friend, Butt Widget.
Butt Widget.
Butt Widget. And Butt Widget asks, what value are oxycaps when bottling? How do they work? If they are desiccants, I can't read. Aren't they saturated since they sit out in the open air at the local homebrew shop? Are they worth using? How should I handle them? If I soak some in sanitizer while bottling and then don't use them, can I use them again and have the oxygen-absorbing properties?
Because as soon as they get wet, they start to...
That's how they activate,
oxygen.
right?
Yeah.
It's the moisture.
So they're fine if they're sitting out because it takes moisture to activate.
Right, unless you get a real humid environment, then I think that might screw them up. But
yeah, like if you're in Nevada.
Yeah, a lot of people say don't even wet them before you put them on. That the oxygen absorption happens so quickly that it doesn't help if you like throw them in a container of sanitizer and 5 minutes later put them on your bottle. It's like too late. So I don't know.
All right. Another one from the chat.
Well, an interesting thing. And here's you were up at Sierra Nevada recently.
Right.
Sierra Nevada switched over to a better sealing crown cap and found that more important because you put a crown cap on, if it sucks all the oxygen out. If you're capping on foam, there's not a whole lot of oxygen anyways.
Right.
But the crown cap leaks past the seal and you're getting oxygen into the bottle continuously. That's much worse for the beer than worrying about that. So.
Right.
Yeah,
you're right. After capping on foam, Sierra Nevada gets 20 to 30 parts per billion of oxygen in the headspace.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, they trace further oxygen from coming in through the seal.
Mm-hmm.
So the oxygen absorption, especially if you're capping on foam or getting it wet right away, it's used up.
Right.
And now, you still have oxygen able to go in under the seal over time.
And this is why cans are so good, is that less leakage of oxygen into the can.
But you still have to, have to purge when you initially can it.
Right. You get more oxygen initially, but less leakage over time.
Right.
Than you do in a bottle. So, interesting.
All right. Again from the chat with Beal. Hi, Jameel, John, and JP. Hi, Beal.
Jennifer Beal?
Jennifer. Ooh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, somehow I doubt it.
John. What difference is there, if any, between wheat malt and torrefied wheat? Are they interchangeable in a wheat beer recipe?
Yeah, torrefied wheat is like puffed wheat.
Yeah.
So, what is it? Rice? Not Rice Krispies. What's the
Rice Puffs or Golden Puffs?
Super Sugar Smacks.
Yeah, they're puffed. Yeah. They're puffed barley or whatever they are. So they put them in moisture and then they like popcorn and they pop and they puff up and it exposes more of the starches to enzymatic reaction, but it's not converted. Wheat malt has actually been converted.
It's undergone
malting,
right, which is an enzymatic breakdown and release of the starches versus torrefication, which is a heat, an expansion and cooking of the starches to make them soluble.
Well, how does that compare to flaking, where they run it, they moisturize it and run it through a mill, and they turn out those flakes like wheat flakes or rye flakes or something like that, and that gelatinizes it as well, doesn't it?
Generally, flaking of the cereal grain does not achieve as complete a solubilization or a gelatinization is the proper word of the starches as torrefication does. So your torrefied wheats can be added directly to the mash. They've been heat converted to soluble form.
So should people use popped corn instead of flaked corn?
You can, but then you need to use air popped with no seasoning, no butter, because
I was thinking a couple of bags of Orville Redenbacher in the microwave. Throw that in there.
Yeah, well, it's the other the other stuff that's on there that you don't want in the beer. But yeah, I mean you can seriously do that. And torrefied wheat versus malted wheat. Malted wheat, of course, needs to be mashed because it's an enzymatic breakdown.
Torrefied wheat does as well.
Well, yes,
you have the starch.
But you can,
if you're converting the starch to sugar,
yes, that is very true. I guess I was thinking in terms of the amount of time needed in the mash to,
you might get a higher efficiency extract from torrefied wheat versus malted wheat, or
potentially,
or flaked.
Yeah, that's true. And because the malted wheat, you got to crush, you got to start the whole mashing process. Torrefied has the starches are much more readily accessible.
Right, a lot of efficiency is based off of how easily the enzymes can smush up against the starch particles. Right.
Right. So the torrefied will convert faster, I guess is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, probably more efficiently if, especially against a milled grain where you have chunks,
right?
Where water doesn't get in or barely gets in,
and because the torrefied wheat or the flaked wheat or these other processes, it's different than the malting process. It's you're end up getting a different flavor out of the grain,
right? Because malting does develop flavor as well as the drying and kilning and all that stuff,
right? So, that's the basic differences between the two. You're going to have some subtle flavor differences. You're going to have some conversion efficiency differences, but go ahead and use what you have.
Cool. All right,
that's pretty good. This is from Brian.
That's not pretty good. That was excellent.
Well, from what I heard, which
you understood. Okay,
which wasn't much.
None of it.
I heard cereal, and then sugar smacks,
and then you went and had a bowl of cereal. You came back. We're almost done.
Well, yeah, and then it was like that was it. So that's what I heard. So
I was having this torrid conversation.
Torrified?
Yes. Right.
Brian Sacramento says, "Hi, Jameel and John. Really enjoy your show. I keg and bottle beers. Well, great." Me too. My keg beers always taste fresh and clean, just as they should, for a very long time, as long as the keg lasts. My bottled beers develop an off flavor. I can't really describe it, but it's always there. It's not a good flavor, not a bad flavor, but not the fresh beer flavor I expect. In general, the beer will taste good, young after 1 week in a bottle, good at 2 weeks in a bottle, and somewhere around 4 weeks into the bottle, this other flavor comes on, and the flavor profile seems to stabilize at that point. I clean all my equipment and sanitize. For priming, I've used corn sugar, but I've also tried dry malt extract. It almost tastes like some of the hop flavor drops out, and the malt flavor comes more to the front versus the same beer in the keg. Any thoughts on what I should look to change? I'd like to join some competition, so I need to bottle beer for that, and of course, it's nice to share with friends.
I mean, if you're getting this kind of a malty, sweet thing, then, I would tend toward oxidation or, warm storage or something like that. If you're storing them warm and your keg's cold, well, there's a big part of your difference. But generally, when somebody says...
hop flavor's dropping out.
Yeah, but when generally somebody says 4 weeks in, it tastes bad, it's like, well, that's an infection. So hard to say without tasting it, but staling within 4 weeks, that doesn't sound right. Unless you got really leaky caps and you're
storing them warm.
I think that chances are it's an infection. Speaking of infections, I was going to go with torrid. But then we jumped right to the next question. My torrid would have been a good segue. But speaking of infections, or torrid infections, fellas, gals, are you looking to spice things up in the bedroom? Been fantasizing about surprising your lover with an adventurous new toy or adult movie? Well, here's an offer you won't be able to resist. Go to adamandeve.com, and for a limited time only, you'll get 50% off just about any item. So if you select your one item at 50% off, they're also going to give you 3 free adult DVDs, and you're going to get a free extra gift so sensual I can't mention on air. To top it all off, right? And to top it all off, they will throw in free shipping on your entire order. So check out adamandeve.com today for the special offer. You'll get 50% off one item when you type Jamil, Jamil, for your offer code. And then when you do, you get the 3 free DVDs, the free extra gift, and the free shipping. So essentially, you're buying one item at half off, and then you get a whole other stuff for free. DVDs, free extra gift, free shipping. So for a little bit of money, you get a whole bunch of stuff. It's well worth checking it out. Use the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at adamandeve.com, or you can check their mobile site, m.adameve.com, and do all the same stuff there and have lots of fun. Good sponsor. Give them your support.
You're turning into a nice VO guy. You know that? Sort of.
There you go.
Hey now. Speaking of hey now.
Well, let's take a short break.
Oh, you want to take a short break? We
will wrap up this extravaganza back after this.
When Blickman Engineering set out to design a great brewing stand, they knew it had to be strong, adaptable, and last for a lifetime. The top-tier brewing stand is now proudly available at BlickmanEngineering.com. It grows with your brewing skills and equipment. Start with 5-gallon coolers on its heavy-gauge stainless steel shelves. Then move all the way up to 30-gallon pots on the high-output burner tiers. Speaking of burners, the custom Blickman Engineering top-tier burners are extremely powerful, efficient, and amazingly quiet. They have safety stops to center your pot, and they'll last a lifetime and won't rust. The top-tier brewing stand allows virtually infinite combinations from traditional gravity systems to 2 tiers to completely horizontal. Configure your stand the way you want and have the freedom to change it at any time in the future. Your brewing stand should adapt with you, not force you to learn a new process. Visit BlickmanEngineering.com today to configure your top-tier brewing stand and to find a local Blickman retailer. You'll be surprised with all the flexible features and the competitive price. Start brewing with Blickman from the top tier.
In a world where everything has been lost.
What happened to the city? It's in ruins.
Only one man has the ancient knowledge to restore civilization.
I need a drink. Oh no, the liquor store's been ransacked.
You looking for beer, stranger? Boy, all the liquor got drunk up in the first 25 minutes of the apocalypse.
Wait, there's still some bottles over... Oh, no. Those are non-alcoholic beer.
I reckon you better stick to arrowroot tea and a desperate nomadic existence like the rest of us.
People, I'm a home brewer. I know how to make alcohol. Oh, it can't be done. Come with me if you want the beer. Okay, I'm gonna need some big plastic buckets.
He is the chosen one. The prophecies say that he's gonna get us wasted.
Someone start heating water. And
from the creators of Northern Brewer, the people who brought you $7.99 Brew Saver shipping, massive selection, and superior customer service comes the home brewer.
Hi, I'm Jamel Zainasheff, and in addition to my work on the Brewing Network, I write the Style Profile column in every issue of Brew Your Own magazine.
Hi, I'm Sean Paxton, and when I'm not prepping for the Home Brewed Chef on the Brewing Network, you can find me writing articles on how to cook with your home brew for Brew Your Own magazine.
Greetings, cretins. This is John Palmer, and when I'm not writing for Brew Your Own, I'm reading it.
John Palmer, Sean Paxton, Jamil Zainasheff. If you love listening to them on the Brewing Network, you'll love reading their articles, tips, and recipes in the pages of Brew Your Own magazine. Join Jamil, John, and Sean 8 times a year in Brew Your Own. And when you subscribe to BYO on the Brewing Network website, half of your subscription price goes right back to the BN to support great beer and food programming. So sign up for Brew Your Own magazine through the BN website today so you can listen and read your way to better homebrew.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What? Mother...
White Labs. It's all in the vial.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
But one fan, anyway.
All right, we're back, and we're just about to wrap up the show, but I'll tell you what, we'll take the rest of our questions from the live chat because we appreciate you guys listening in live and supporting the show. So
it's a nice thing to say.
Yeah, we'll take all the rest from the live chat. We'll save the email ones for next time, and you guys in live chat, you'll get the last few questions we'll do.
This is from Crude Brew Crew. He asks, I've seen Heretic at a few different events like Stone Anniversary Party and blah, blah, blah. Do most of the events contact Heretic to attend, or do you find that you have to do most of the contact? I'm assuming that was left over from our pro shows.
Yeah, no, they all contact us.
Awesome.
You know, you find if you open a brewery, you'll get endless emails
You'll have a lot of
asking for events, and the homebrewers asking for lots of free stuff. And you'll get homebrew events asking for lots of free stuff. And if you were to fill all of those, you'd cripple like Sam Adams with all those requests. It's amazing how much comes in. And you'd love to fill it all. It's just, it's just financially unworkable. It's a tough thing.
This one is from Mazer. How do you guys label and catalog your bottled homebrews? I guess specifically Jamal, because you had, thousands and thousands. Because I've heard he has kept bottles for years. Mazer's collection of batches is growing, and he has trouble keeping his batches organized.
Right. Well, you need your own little, walk-in, and that helps. And what I would do is I would number per batch the tops of the bottles with a Sharpie. So if it was batch 297, I'd write a 297 on there. I kept a log, a spreadsheet of every batch and, how many I had left over, and I would maintain that when I pulled stuff for drinking or for competitions. On the outside of the boxes, I would put a sheet that had the batch number, the name, and how many quantity were in the box. So I would go ahead and put one of those on every box, and as I pulled things out, I'd cross out the number and write the new number. And then every once in a while, I'd consolidate boxes down, and just that's how I did it. Worked well for me.
Huh. John, what about you? Or do you have an extensive cellar necessarily?
I don't, actually.
See, neither do I. I mean, I have a chest freezer and a stand-up kegerator, and I have some bottles in there, but I don't really bottle for hardcore competition and stuff. So
and I've never done that. I've always had the beer of the moment, and then various
lives for the moment.
Commercial beers that I'm saving.
Well, he's much more sensitive, I think, than you are.
That's true. I'm
Palmer
just
has
a cold-hearted bastard.
You have one feeling.
Yeah,
no, I'm just
that
much
one
lazier.
feeling led me to have 1,200 bottles of beer on hand.
Oh, that's true.
So there you go.
There's a show for that called Hoarders. You should check it out. This is another one from our buddy Beer Biggin. He wants to know if there are any beer ingredients that could be lethal to yeast. He doesn't have any specifics.
Oxygen?
But, brewing ingredients.
Oxygen.
Well, I guess oxygen, yeah, right.
Nutrients, zinc, copper.
But the one
I think more along the lines, I guess his follow-up question was, our homebrew club has a chance of getting tequila barrels. What flavor notes can be expected from a used oak tequila barrel other than tequila flavors? I don't know, maybe there's something in there that might mess with the yeast.
You probably don't get a lot of oak from tequila barrels. So probably
because they're all neutral.
They're probably neutral wine barrels that have been repurposed.
Just the alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol. And there's some flavors with tequila.
But there's no weird juniper berry. If you use too much of that, your yeast won't.
No, I wouldn't worry about that.
Sounds good to me, dude.
Well, and I wouldn't ferment in the barrels anyways. I would make your beer, ferment it, and then add it to the tequila barrel to age and absorb the tequila flavors.
True.
J.C. McCoy's asks, what are good beers to make for... What are good beers to make to harvest yeast? For Cal Ale, English Ale, Belgian Ale. I guess that's a follow-up to your other question.
Right.
First, when I read it, I thought it was what beers are good base beers for harvest ales. But I'm stupid, and it took me this long
for
to
the
figure
English
it out.
ales, milds, ordinary bitters, For Cal Ale, the Scottish ales, the 60 shilling, 70 shilling. For lagers, it's like a light Pilsner. Belgians, some Belgian pale ale or something like that.
All right, great. Last question.
All righty.
Again from JC. He says, for Jamil's
Christ.
Whirlpool chiller, do you leave the chiller in the boil kettle after the Whirlpool is done, or would you take it out? He wants to know if pulling out the chiller will mix everything back up.
I would leave it in.
That's what I do.
When it whirlpools, it does tend to pull the stuff to the middle of the whirlpool. What happens is the liquid in the center of the column is moving slower, so everything kind of drifts there and then settles down. So after that's occurred, if you lift out the Whirlpool chiller, you probably could, and it wouldn't be a big deal, but I just leave it in.
Yeah.
It's sanitary at that point. And then, give it 20, 30 minutes for the rest to fully settle to the bottom, and then you should be good to go.
And that's it from the chat.
All right, another fine show.
It was, wasn't it?
Beautiful January here in Pacheco, California.
Sunny, 70 degrees.
Sunny January in Pacheco, yes. And if you like to keep hearing us enjoy the sunny weather in Pacheco, California, make sure to check out our sponsors, BlickmanEngineering.com, especially, they're paying for the show, so you don't have to, and AdamandEve.com, they're doing the same. So check those folks out. All good companies that sponsor the show, and we'd like to see you support them so they continue to support us. Also, check out the Brewing Network store. There's a lot of goodies in there. You go to thebrewingnetwork.com/store, and you can see glassware, shirts, hoodies, hats.
Lunch meat shirts.
Autographed
autographed books. You can get an autographed copy of How to Brew there. You can get a lot of other books out of that store. And everything you purchase is all quality stuff. It's all been vetted by the Brewing Network team, and the profit from that all goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network. So, support your homebrew shops, but if you got something you need to buy that they don't offer, check out that Brewing Network store. You can find some goodies there, and really helps the bottom line.
Goodies.
All right. So, until then, make sure you brew strong.
Brew strong, everybody.